Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to draw a colourful eye using your pencil crayons. Let's get started. Right, before we start with the fun parts of colouring, we're going to draw the eye. So let's start with the pupil right in the centre. Just to the left of the middle of your page, you're going to draw a circle about the size of a 1 Rand coin, or maybe 2 centimeters in diameter. And then we're going to draw the iris around that, and that's going to be about the size of a tennis ball. Try and make sure that this circle that you've just drawn is right in the center of that eye. So just go around. If you wanted to be very precise, you could use your compass or even a glass, or you could just eyeball it. Right, now that we've got the pupil, we're going to start drawing the lids of the eye. So along the bottom of the eye, the eyelid's just going to scrape along the bottom of our eyeball. Now, to make it easier for myself, I'm turning my page so that my hand is nice and comfortable. And from just above the bottom of the eye, I'm going to draw a line curving down till it touches the bottom of my iris. And then I'm just going to let it curve up a little bit. Okay, and now we're going to do the top of our eyelid, and for that we need to cut off a bit of our iris that we've just drawn. So from here, I'm just going to take it across, and it's going to cut into some of the eye that we've drawn. Okay, and you're going to keep going up a little bit more. So the pupil of the eye is not in the center of the eye, we're making it slightly to the side. So this picture is someone who's giving you the eye from the side. So just past halfway, we're going to start curving it down again. Let it meet up with this line that we drew earlier, the bottom eyelid. Okay, there's this funny little thing where your tear duct is, I'm guessing, over here. So we add that into the corner of our eye. And now from here, we're just going to draw a really thin line up. This is just a crease or a fold in the eye. And as we get to the top of the eye, it can just nip in and get really close. And now we're going to draw the top eyelid. That's going to follow the shape of the eye. As we go over the top of the eye, you're going to keep this line a bit more straight, so it should get further and further away from your eyeball as you get to the end, and finish it round about where the end of your eye is. So you can see this line gets further and further apart. Right, before I carry on, I'm just going to erase this part of the pupil that that part of the eye that we're not using. Okay, and then at the bottom, we're going to do the bottom eyelid. We're going to use it to help us. So this is going to go up close to the eye, and then again, like the top one, it's going to move a bit away from the eye, curve up a bit, and you can also just finish it round about the end of the eye. Right, we're just going to add one more line here, and that's just the inside of the eye. So this top eyelid here, we're going to bring it out a little bit and just run a line that's almost parallel to the bottom of the eyeball. Right, we've done the hard part, and now it's the fun part, the colouring in. Right, so we're going to layer lots of colours on top of each other to get a more natural looking skin tone. So because we're doing that, while we're colouring, you need to keep that in mind and not press too hard, because when you press really hard on the page, you're not going to leave room for any other colours to join in. Okay, so I'm going to start with my orange. And what we're going to do is just colour really lightly over all of the parts of this that are the skin. So not the eyeball and the little tear duct, but all around the edges. Now you also don't want to press so light that you can't even see the orange, because then you're wasting your time. So don't go too light, but also don't go too dark that there's no space to add more colours onto it. Okay, I'm just doing the bottom part of the eye now. Another trick is to colour in a lot of different directions. So often we're taught to just colour in one direction because it looks neater. But when you're doing this soft colouring in particular, a lot of different directions will help the colours blend into each other more. Right, so now that I've got a nice base of orange, we're going to start adding some shading in. So where these creases or fold lines are for our eyelids, it's going to be slightly darker. So on this line, you can see I'm holding my pencil normally again now. I'm going to press fairly hard and then do some darker shading. Let it get lighter as you get to the middle of the eyelid. I'm just slowly pressing lighter and lighter. Okay, so on each of these fold lines that we drew, okay, the top of the eyelid, we're also going to add some dark shading. So press nice and hard along that line. Do a bit of dark shading. Press lighter as you get to the center. Do you see how already just with one layer of color, it's already looking more three-dimensional when you add a bit of dark and light shading? Right, we're going to do the same along the bottom. So a nice dark line along the outside of the eye. If you wanted to do someone with a fairer skin tone, you would be doing this with your yellow. I'll give you the option for a lighter skin tone as we go along. Okay, and then lastly, this fold at the bottom. Right, the second color I'm going to be using is a light brown. If you don't have a light brown, you could just use a little bit of yellow, but press really lightly. Or you could just jump straight to your brown and leave out this layer altogether. We're just adding layers to make the color look richer. Right, and we're doing the exact same thing again around the edges of the eyes, the lids, and around here we'll do some shading too. Right, so I've got my light brown now. I'm going over this top fold of my eyelid, pressing hard and then pressing lighter and lighter as I get to the middle. And you'll do the same against the edge of the eye. Press nice and hard, then press lighter and lighter. Just take the color off the edge of the page with some light coloring. Right, so if you need some time, you can pause the video on this picture to see where the light brown is. Right, the next color we're going to add is our darker brown, and we're just going to do the same thing all over again. The harder you press with the dark brown, then the darker the skin tone is going to be at the end. Right, now the next color might sound a little crazy. We're going to take some blue and just go over the crease lines with the blue. The reason that we're doing this is because this face has got orange undertones. So orange was the first color we used, and blue and orange are complementary colors, so they make each other pop out. So this is just to add a little extra something to our picture. You're not going to see all of these blue lines at the end, just some of them will peek out and it will make the orange in the skin tone pop. Right, our final colour for our skin tone is going to be some black. Again, the more liberal you use the black, the darker the skin tone is going to look. Right, and the next part of the skin that we're going to work on is this bottom eyelid and the little tear duct. So for that, we're going to just have a little bit of orange first. We're going to go quite lightly with our orange, almost like a base coat. So we're just going to start with a really light layer of the orange. This section here, just to the left of the eye, I'm going to do a little bit of darker shading because there will be a slight shadow. And now to add some more darker tones, we're going to use our red. Right in this corner of the eye here, we're going to have dark red shading, and we just let it get lighter and lighter as it comes out of the corner. Red and orange are going to blend into each other very easily because they're next to each other on the colour wheel. And on the other corner too, do a bit of the darker red, and some nice light shading just coming along the bottom of the eyelid and a bit on the top too. Later, when we finish off the eye, we'll add a little bit of black to this as well to tie it together at the end. But around the edges of the tear duct, we're just going to make it red, getting lighter as we get to the center. Again, we will come back to this. Right, our next job is to draw the eyelashes. Now when you draw the eyelashes, I'm just going to show you on a scrap piece of paper. Almost think of it as a tick with a curve. So flick your pencil out. The other thing that we're going to do is make the base slightly thicker. So once you've done your flicking out, you're just going to almost make it like a triangle at the base. And when we do lots of eyelashes together, they're going to make it look nice and thick and full. The other thing is, don't make all of your eyelashes exactly the same angle. If I was making eyelashes on an eye here, I would add a thin eyelash that's going just slightly off center, and then another thin one in here, maybe one that's going that way. And when they've each got their little bulb or root at the bottom, they start to look like a really full, natural set of eyelashes. The other thing to aim for, your top eyelashes should go past this top eyelid. Your bottom eyelashes should kind of stay within the confines of your bottom eyelid, so you kind of know how big they need to be. The other thing is, eyelashes that are on the left hand side are going to flick out to the left like that. Eyelashes that are on the right hand side will flick out to the right. These first few ones will be really small. I like to draw a few of them, then do the bases and then fill in the gaps. As you curve your eye around, you need to change it so that it can face to the left. And a good spot to change is here at this highest point of the eye. Start making ones that are a little bit straighter, and then add in the odd one that curves that way, and then a straight one and a curving one. You can see I'm pushing really hard, just flicking it out. Think of yourself as a teacher just sitting ticking. This one was a bit of an extra long one. Okay, as you get to the corner of the eye, they will get slightly shorter. Okay, so once I've got the curve of them right, I can just go back and add a few more in where it's looking a bit empty. Right, and then work on the base of each of them. So just go to the base of each eyelash and make it slightly thicker. Right, another thing that you can do to make them look fuller is to just go along that top eyelid with your black pencil crayon again. We'll just tie the eyelashes together and make them look a bit thicker and fuller. as you come to this inner eye, you can just leave them as the odd eyelash. Right, the bottom is exactly the same. Right, if you need to pause the video on this for a few minutes, you can while you catch up. The next thing that we're going to colour in is the pupil of the eye. So to use this, you're going to need your greens, a yellow, a brown and a black pencil crayon. We're going to start with our dark green pencil crayon and just go around the edge of the eye. Okay, and press fairly hard on that edge and then do some lighter colouring as you come in. Right, I'm just turning my page so that my hand is nice and comfortable. Right, and then around the edge of the pupil, I'm also just doing a little bit of colouring with my darker green. Okay, and then I'm going to do a pattern around the eye, and it's going to kind of be like loops like that. Okay, but you're going to do them in a circular shape around the eye. And at the end, this is just going to look like flecks of colour in the eye. So I'm doing a couple of them. I'm not pressing too hard because I don't want them to take over the shading of the eye. Right, and now I'm going to go with my light green. Just going to do a nice light layer of colouring with my green. This area here, we're going to leave it blank and add a little bit of yellow in, and that's just going to look like a fleck of colour in the eye at the end. Just adds a little bit of interest to the eye. Okay, so now that I've done some light colouring, I'm going to again do this loop or spring type pattern with my light green. Again, just layering lots and lots of colours makes a picture look a lot more interesting than just colouring it in one colour. Right, let's go with our yellow and colour in, do some colouring in that section. Now our final colour for the eye is a bit of brown. Okay, and we're going to colour in with the brown in a similar way that we did with the dark green. So I'm going to start around the edges, quite dark, get lighter as I move in. If you want to try this on your own, so doing lots of layers of colouring with the pencil crayon, there's not really a rule for the order that you should do the colours in. Usually it's the lighter colours first and then the darker colours. But if you suddenly realise, oh, I'd like to add yellow to this, and you've already added the brown, that's fine. You can colour over it with the yellow. It's usually quite forgiving. So don't be put off this because you don't know the order that you should do it in. Just add lots of layers of colour, and if you colour light enough, you'll always leave space for more colours to join in. Go around the pupil. Again with a little bit of lighter colouring. For the flecks, instead of these big circles that we've been doing with the other colours, we're just going to do a couple of lines. Some of them should be slightly longer, some of them shorter. So from the pupil, draw little lines, slightly different lengths, different distances apart. And then from the outside, draw some lines coming in. Again, different lengths, different distances apart. Try and make them irregular. I'm just doing a few lines now. lightly shading with lines going out. If you feel like it's not tying together, use a light brown. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more brown shading around the edge. So whichever color you add more of, that's the shade that the eye is going to come out. If you wanted to make a blue eye, you would just use different shades of blue, maybe a little bit of green in it, just to make it look a bit more interesting. And again, I'm going with some shading. When you do this light shading color, you're just tying everything together. So if it's looking like it's not joining together, they're too different, do some light shading over it. Okay, and over this top eyelid too. Okay, now we're going to go with our black and color in our pupil. Get a nice clean line around the outside. We're also going to shade around the edge of the eye and also try and clean it up. So here I've gone out the lines 1 or 2 times. I'm just going to go over that with my black and hide it so that we've got a nice, so that we have a nice outline for the iris. Now while we've got our black out, we're just going to add a bit of shading to the eye. So on the eyeball is actually round and we've got it as a really sharp edge here. So if you just make a little curved line there, in this corner we're going to do some dark shading, just to round off this edge of the eye. And then it can get lighter as we get out further. You need to be very careful shading an eyeball because it is white and you can easily make a mess of it. No pressure. But just a little bit of the dark shading here shows the shadow of the top eyelid, and we'll do a little bit of dark shading on the bottom. It also just helps that eyeball look a bit more rounded. So on the edge of this lid here, you could press a little harder. But don't bring that dark shading too far into the eyeball. You can also use a little bit of red on this eyeball, but again, very, very subtle and gentle colors, hardly pressing on the page. If you put too much red on someone's eyeball, they're going to look very tired. So don't make them crazy red, but just add a little bit of red shading. Right, so I'm just going to darken my shading on this little tear duct here, particularly the bottom half. There's be a bit of shadow up here too. Right, and then finally, again, if you want to go with some blue, and just add a few blue touches if you feel like you don't have enough blue. The blue is just a little something extra, you don't really have to do it. And there we have our pencil crayon eye. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to learn more about art, please subscribe to my channel. We put up new videos every week.